Good afternoon, Year 10, and welcome back. We're continuing our work on coasts today, UK coast specifically, but today we're looking at processes of transportation and deposition on UK coasts. As usual, we've included a checklist at the beginning of this lesson, and you will see that checklist again at the end of the presentation. It's a little bit different today because the work that you will receive at the end of the PowerPoint to upload is more than one question, and it is on a separate document. So when you go to Satchel 1, please make sure you note that there is a separate Word document which you will need to complete and upload before next lesson. You have notes to take, and importantly, the first set of notes you make is a roundup of the very important but neglected part of 4.3b. This is talking about how UK climate influences coastal erosion and coastal retreat. I think last lesson we talked about how wind or prevailing wind influences the waves that particularly the southwest of the UK receives. Today you're just making sure you understand that climate as a whole influences erosion and retreat before you move on. You're going to make notes on a video. You're going to create a flashcard, or it could be a poster, or it could be a PowerPoint of your own about longshore drift. That is the main thing we'll be tackling today. You will then have a word filter complete. You will then complete a table about different depositional landforms, and then you will have the document with the separate PEQs that you will need to upload prior to next lesson. So before you jump into the main body of the lesson, I've asked you here to read these questions and work out the answer from the multiple choice options. This is in order for you to really grasp how climate influences coastal erosion and retreat before we talk about transportation and deposition. You don't have to upload this. Remember, you only have to upload the final task. But I would like you to think carefully about the above. So, which of those is not the result of coastal erosion? What will cause a storm surge? And if you're not sure what a storm surge is, please review your learning from when we looked at Hurricane Katrina, and you can also go on the BBC Bite Size website. And then think carefully which of those statements would not lead to higher rates of coastal erosion. You have looked at it in this unit, and you have looked at that in the lower school. I then ask you to write down these key points that you must know for 4.3b. There's no task for this. I just want you to make sure that you're aware of them, you recite them, you rehearse them, and they are concrete in your mind. Now, there are two types of coastal landform, and we've primarily looked at erosional landforms. So you may remember earlier in the unit that we looked at how a headland goes through several processes that eventually lead it to become a stack or a stump. We then see things like caves, arches, wave-cut platforms. These are all erosional landforms. Now today we're talking about depositional landforms. Of course, the difference between the two types is that if it's erosional, it means that land has been taken away, it's been worn away. And if it is depositional, it means that land has been built up and created. Now that material had to come from somewhere, right? So you're going to watch the BBC Learning video that I have included there, and you will make notes for task 1. Now, as I stated briefly earlier, longshore drift is the main thing that we tackle in this lesson. It's very important to understand this process. It is a lot simpler than it looks. And I'm hoping that through creating a revision resource in this lesson, it's something that you can easily come back to. But let's just go through the notes quickly. So depositional landforms are formed by either transportation and or deposition. okay? And you might see longshore drift abbreviated as LSD. LSD. I have seen it in some exam papers and practice exam papers. Don't get freaked out by this acronym. It's just short for longshore drift. So this useful diagram, I would like you to make a revision flashcard out of this. If you don't have flashcards, that's absolutely fine. Just use paper or just use your computer to create a revision resource for yourself. That is absolutely okay. Let's look at the stages in longshore drift. It says here, waves approach the shore at an angle driven by the prevailing wind. So the main wind approaching that area of coastline. So you can see that it's coming in diagonally, if we're trying to put it simply. So they're coming in at an angle. Now, the swash, which is water coming onto the beach, waves coming onto the beach, it is moving sediment up the beach. So it's taking material and bringing it up the beach at the same angle as the prevailing wind. Now that wave coming back down is called backwash. And backwash, as it says there, drags the sediment back down. And this is because of gravity. And you will notice that because it's due to gravity, that backwash is dragging sediment down at right angles. At right angles, okay? So perpendicular. Over time, that net movement is that sediment moves along the beach. You'll hear me saying net a lot, so it means overall. So the overall movement over time is that sediment moves along the beach. And there's an arrow there indicating the overall direction of longshore drift. Now, longshore drift is a process of transportation. So make your revision resource out of this slide. Now, just to break it down further, we've just given you a word fill. And of course, we haven't left you on your own. We, of course, have a word bank to help you, okay? Again, this is just to reinforce your understanding. So remember those key ideas: swash coming in at an angle due to the prevailing wind, and then, of course, moving sediment with it, and then the backwash coming back down at right angles due to gravity, again, moving that sediment with it. Now, I'm about to show you a couple of slides that are not in the PowerPoint on Satchel 1, but it's just to kind of bridge between what we're talking about now and what's going to come up in the next couple of slides where you talk about depositional landforms. Now here we've got a wooden groin, sea defence. I'm not sure where this is, but it does demonstrate longshore drift very, very well. Okay, right, so you'll notice that on one side of the groin, the material seems very, very low down, very flat as well. And on the other, it's raised. So where's the evidence for longshore drift? Remember, the waves are coming in at an angle, okay? I surmise that the wave is coming in from this direction. Okay? I believe that the wave is coming in from this direction, the prevailing wind is coming in from that direction, and I believe that swash is moving the material up the beach like that. You will notice that this part is a lot higher than the part on the left side of the groin, the left side as you can see the picture there. So I believe, I can tell that material is being washed up the beach at that angle and is coming back down, of course, at right angles, because you can see with the red outline there, it's building up on the right hand side of the groin. So I would anticipate that, okay, again, because the prevailing wind is doing this and the swash is coming in at angles, then it's probably the case that as we go to the left again and approach the next groin, there should be material built up there as well. So in your exam, you might be presented with a photo and you might be asked to maybe suggest the direction of the wind or the direction of longshore drift. You may be asked for evidence of that. So this is just an example of something you might see. What you're about to do when we look at depositional landforms is talk about this. I'm not going to say too much because I don't want to give away the answers. But again, there is evidence of longshore drift here, but something has dramatically altered the process. What should have been, I guess, just a straight beach that formed is actually something else. Again, I'm not going to say what it's called, but just know that it has been affected by what's going on up here. So we have a river that is ending here, okay? We've got a river that's ending here. So even if the wind is blowing material and waves in this direction, and we would expect that there's a beach that just continually forms, this river is clearly having an influence, isn't it? So bear that in mind when you complete the next task. So you're going to use the textbook pages that I will upload to talk about 3 different depositional landforms. The first one, of course, you're very familiar with. That's just a beach, okay? I've given you some keywords to fill in there, but you will also need to sketch. You will also need to say what exactly each of these landforms is. The next landforms are a spit and a bar. So these will be less familiar to you, which is why I would like you to use the textbook pages to help you and the keywords to complete it as well. The last thing, of course, you will need to do, and the only thing you need to upload for this week's work, is a set of short practice exam questions. I won't leave you hanging. I will make sure that you have textbook pages to support you. You have actually got a Word document that you can complete and upload. I've put special boxes in that you can type directly into. Next week, along with your next task, I will also be adding the answers so that you can self-assess your work. Now, before we move on to next week's learning, I want you to think. So we have here the East Yorkshire coast. This is the Holderness coast, something you'll be very, very familiar with now. I want you to think about the direction in which longshore drift is occurring. Remember, I said that in the real exam, you might be asked to suggest which direction waves or longshore drift will be happening, and you would need to be able to provide evidence for some of those questions as well. So, at the end of your learning this week, just think about what your answer would be to this question. So, in which direction would you expect longshore drift to be occurring? Of course, there's that checklist again. Make sure you've gone through each of the items. Make sure you've done each of the tasks, and make sure you're clear on what you need to upload, which this week is just the Word document with the practice exam questions. If you have any questions, of course, contact your geography teacher, and we wish you the best of luck with this week's learning. Take care, and we'll see you soon.